Hello everybody, Mark from Overlanding Forward. Hope you're doing well. 3.5 years ago, I bought this L322 Range Rover. It's a 2010 autobiography black. It's a TDV8, 4.4 litre. Over the 3.5 years that I've had it, most of you have seen on the channel, it's been relatively well documented. The good, the bad and the indifferent. And it's about time, now that I'm finished building, that I give you a full walk around of absolutely everything that's gone on this vehicle over the last 3.5 years. Now, some things have changed drastically from when it started out to where we are today. But I can honestly say, after 3.5 years, I am now finished with this build. I've done close to 15,000 miles not on tarmac. Now, whether you call that off-road, it's a mixture of sand, gravel, but not tarmac. I've visited 18 countries. I've gone pretty much through the Nordics, right the way down through the Baltic states, all the way into Germany, Poland, Italy, right the way down the Adriatic coast, down to Montenegro. I've been here to Portugal and Spain about 15 times. So in all that time, I've had time to develop this the way I want it, the type of travel that I do, and I pretty much say it's perfect. So it's about time I did a full walkthrough of absolutely everything on this vehicle. And again, it's subtly changed from when it started to where we are now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it into 4 parts. So part 1 is going to be pretty much everything that's been bolted to this. We'll talk about the lights, underbody protection, wheels and tyres, all that sort of stuff in part 1. Part 2, I'll go through the rooftop tent and the awning, the roof rack that it's on, talk about some of the thought that went into it, the weight distribution, all that good stuff. I'll go through that. Part 3, I'm going to go into what I consider a relatively complex 12-volt system with this. So I've got lithium batteries, I've got an Egon hub, all of those things that evolved over a period of time. In part 4 will be pretty much everything else. So things like my water tank, the hot water heater that I've got on it, the kitchen, the fridge, all the other stuff that sort of make up this vehicle. So anyway, that gives you a snapshot of the full walkthrough. If I was to do it in one video, we'd be here for about 3 days. So I'm going to break it into small bite-sized chunks, drop it over the next coming weeks in the run-up to the launch of the book. And then you can pick and choose what you want to watch. What I'll do is when I finish the whole edit, I'll put it together as one massive walk around. If you're bored one evening, then get a beer, get something a little bit stronger than that, and then go watch the whole thing, which will give you one entire view of the L322 Overland build. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's get started with, this is a 2010, which is a 2011 model year Range Rover L322 Autobiography Black. It is a 4.4 litre TDV8 engine. The unique thing about this, there were only 700 of these ever made, and this version commemorated the 40th anniversary of the creation of the Range Rover. Basically, this thing is loaded. The Autobiography Black had everything that they could possibly find in the parts being at Land Rover thrown at this thing. So it's got things like, and those of you who've seen it, I know that people just gush over it. It's got a hand-stitched leather headliner. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, you don't think you need a hand-stitched leather headliner until you've got one. It is a work of art. And apparently, if you wanted to buy them as an optional extra, it's like a $7 grand optional extra. But it's gorgeous in there. Everything leather, all the touch surfaces leather. It's got some very subtle trim decals in there that identify as an Autobiography Black. Why did I buy this model? Well, it's quite simple. I wanted one that had a locking rear differential, and they were always an optional extra on almost most of the models. Now, some of the supercharged had them, the later 5 litres. Some of the Westminsters had them, but they weren't on every single vehicle. So the last run of the Westminsters, the locking rear diffs basically cleared out most of the parts bin and just chucked them on. This one had it as standard, so I always knew that I wouldn't be tracking around after trying to find one of these vehicles, whether it had one or not. And the only way to really tell is to scurry up underneath it, look at the differential and see whether there's wires coming out the back of it. That's why I bought this model, and I saw 3 of them, and I saw a bunch that weren't blacks that claim to have locking rear diffs. They don't. Now, why did I want locking rear diff? Well, I think it gives it that extra traction added to the terrain response system that's built into it. So not only do you have a center lock, I've got a rear lock. And that just adds to the functionality, it adds to the off-road capability of this vehicle. Okay, so the last thing that went on, which is the first thing we'll talk about, is the winch. This is a Terra Firma 12,000 pound winch. It is mounted to a Land Rover Passion L322 winch tray, which has been shortened by 57mm to make it sit further back into the bumper. It has a factor 55 fair lead and a factor 55 flat link, which is the winch hook, and it's got a rope guard on as well. To break up the sort of black on the front, what I've done is I had some Heritage Studios amber floodlights. These are flush mounted. These were left in the drawer from when I had the Defender. And then I just cut 2 holes in the side of the winch tray, and then I've actually bonded these in. I haven't screwed them in. Purely because of the space between the back of the lights and where the winch is. So they're bonded in, they're perfectly fine, they're all good to go. Taking all of this off to get the winch installed means that you have to cut a lot of the plastic pieces that we have lower down on the bumper, as you can see here and here, to get it to fit. And so what ends up happening is you end up exposing a huge amount of the plastic that has to come out to get everything to fit. So I just made up this grill over here to protect the bottom of the radiator in case anything sort of comes up and then hits in there. It's just real simple. I think it's like a 3mm grill. You can buy sheets of it off of eBay, and then I just bent it to shape, and that sits within the bracing tray from the winch tray, the bracing mount that goes into the bottom of the frame. That bottom panel here has been cut to expose the hook. That was very easy to do. All of that comes off at the bottom to enable you get it. I just cut a hole in mine, so it's easy to get to the hook. A lot of the tabs and everything are gone from the bottom to make it fit. So if we go over here, you can see I can actually push this to make it fit, but it all clips into place. That's just part and parcel of having to sort of Frankenstein these things in to make sure they fit. I still retain my cruise control, which is basically back here, behind the back of this piece of the bumper. The Heritage Studios lights on the winch tray, they're really meant there for cosmetic use. The chances of me winching at night time, slim to none. The chances of me actually using the winch, it's there as an insurance policy. If I don't use it, I'll be happy. If I need it, I've got it. But the Heritage Studios floods, the ambers, are hooked into the same factory switch. Those are WOW LEDs. They're on a 3D printed mount that came from Jordan Bishop. Thank you, Jordan. They're really good because they replace the factory fog lights. These are spots, they're not fogs, but they're really bright when all 4 of them come on. The 2 red park distance controls are not connected because originally I thought I would have to connect them, but I wasn't aggressive in the way that I cut the bumper tray. I figured I would have to come up here and then go over to expose the winch, but I got away with it. The number plate, we'll deal with the number plate holder, is a Terra Firma. It has little prongs that go into the fair lead, so I just elongated these to make sure it sat flush against the top of the fair lead. The winch control pack is detachable from the winch itself, and you might just be able to see it here, but that is where I mounted it. There is a factory hole on the top of the slam panel that is in there on a bracket, and then I've got the winch controller. The remote control is already plugged in purely because I just can't get in there to plug that in. I can just about get my finger in to turn the switch on and off, but the winch itself is already plugged in. It's on. I turn it on through a big 300 amp cutoff switch that I've got, which is already on the top of the slam panel. So let's talk about lights. So one of the very first mods that I did was add these ARB Intensity Solace 9-inch spots. Originally these were mounted to the factory brackets that fitted into the crash structure behind the back of here, which is no longer here. These are now mounted on custom 4mm steel brackets which go back into the recess here of the bumper. You probably can't see them, but these are bolted to them, and there are 2 bolts in there. They do move, but not a lot. It's okay, it's perfectly fine. But they went in, they are mounted to the factory high beam. A few other things I've done on lights on the front. The high beams are, I'll probably bastardize the name, they're Benzie LEDs. The original HIDs have been replaced on both sides. They were beginning to yellow. I noticed it on a picture I had, so I ripped them out, got brand new ones. Those of you who look at it straight on will notice that that lens is far clearer than that lens. That one's new, that one's still original, and at some point in time I'm going to have to pull the lens off because that one is beginning to get misty. So the other lights I've got, these were sent to me by Auxbeam. Actually, a pair of them were sent by Auxbeam. They're really there for cosmetic reasons, just to cover in the gap between the top of the tent and the roof rack and the roof. To me, it didn't look good with nothing there, and I knew before I was going to get the tent that I needed to fill that in. And so those are Auxbeam V series. They are 5-inch. They're really bright. They've got daylight running lights on all of them. So I've got 4 ambers, 2 whites. They're just about even, but because of the way that the mounting ribs are on the tent and the way it lines up, and because the tent itself is not 100% straight or lined up, purely because of the brackets of the awning, they look like they're slightly off. And they might be to some people, but we deal with it. So wheels and tyres, V-Bay, they were about £100 each, so about 400 quid, no tyres. The reason why I went with L405 wheels is the offset brings the wheel away from the bodywork slightly. They've got a deeper offset. I can't remember what it is. I think it's -30, but it makes it sit further out into the wheel arch. Now, originally on this vehicle, I had Cooper AT Sport 3s, I think they were, in 275, 55, 20s. These I've moved up to now are Discoverer ST Maxes, which is the hybrid tyre between the all-terrain and the full-on mud. So I've had these on probably about 3 months now. But I've gone to a different size. I've gone to 265, which is narrower, but 60, which is taller. There is a small amount of rubbing I get on full lock, primarily sort of around the wheel arch piece over here, but generally they're fine. They're slightly noisier on tarmac, but to be honest, you sort of get used to it, or you just turn the radio and you sound up. They do rumble at low speed, but that's to do with the size of the blocks. And if you notice here, these blocks here, the outer tread blocks come from the full-on mud tyres, and the inner 3 treads come from the AT3s, and that's why they're called a hybrid. So they've got really aggressive outside lugs, more of an AT inside lugs. So I'm in Portugal. I've done sand, gravel, mud, rocks. They've been perfect. I haven't really had to air them down that much. I've tried pulling them down to about 28. They're perfectly fine. Not really going to get any problems unless you really drop them down, I reckon, into the teens on PSI, where you would actually start potentially running into issues on the sidewall. But these have got a really strong sidewall to them. They're 3-ply. And I think the grip that you would get with the tread blocks on the side make it a much more aggressive than the old AT3s that I had. The AT3s lasted about 45,000 miles, and I definitely put them through their paces. They probably would have been okay, but I had a split carcass on one of the rears, which is a common problem with a certain batch. And I got some money back by switching over to the ST Maxes. So anyway, that's why it is. Those of you who ask about why you're running 20s, you're an absolute idiot. Those massive 6-pot calipers require at least 20, or rather 20, but you can get factory 19-inch wheels that will go over them. The problem with 19-inch wheels is the tyre selection is pretty crap. So I've kept them with 20 and I've just gone 60. I think they will be fine for what I need. I don't do aggressive rock crawling. I don't really need to be putting these down to 0 PSI. They're fine for the type of travel that this vehicle was set up to do. Okay, so the rock sliders. I'm a huge fan. Those of you who've been following the channel for a while know of Land Rover Passion gear. So the winch tray is Land Rover Passion. The rock sliders are Land Rover Passion as well. They've been on about 3.5 years. Only recently did I rub them down and then Raptor-lined them. They fit into the factory mounting points. So the factory has the plastic drop down guard. So there are 8 on the top, and then there are 8 up underneath here. So to get them to fit, you basically have to drill out the old factory holes, insert the M8 riv nut, in goes those bolts. These are bulletproof. They're really well made. The only downside I'd had was on the leading edge of here and here, where stones were being kicked up. It was taking off some of the paint, which is why I Raptor-lined them. You can high lift mount on them if you need to. I don't have a high lift jack. You can jack the car up on these. They're strong enough because of the mounting points onto the chassis. So I'd highly recommend these, and especially in Europe, we're very, very limited on when we can buy these from. But these have been bulletproof, and I highly recommend them. Now, to go with the Raptor on the front, these panels, these 3 panels either side, have been Raptored as well. They're filthy now. This side, when I did them, instead of following sort of the instructions, but there was the first time in the rattle cans when I Raptored, I sort of did 1 coat, let them dry, and then foolishly I went back and went up and down with the can instead of going side by side. So when I put them on, you actually see these tiger striping. What I'm going to do is, when I get back and get all this cleaned up, I will probably tape all this up and then just put another flash coat over the top just to get rid of it. But at this point in time, you really can't see it. I've done some fairly aggressive trails. You can actually see how much has come up from the wheels and tires flicking up mud through the rock sliders. You can see the splashing on it. You can hear it rattling off the side. And you can see the Raptor on this side of the vehicle is a little bit cleaner, not a lot. And again, the Raptor down here, I think it does more protection than I thought it would do, purely because the amount of driving off-road that I do and the stones and everything that gets chipped up off the front. Now, I originally had mud guards on the front and the back, and I took them off because I didn't think they were actually working. I don't like them, and they would also require quite a bit of cutting to get them to fit on this side. But I don't think I really need them. And like I said, you can see where all of the splashing has come up on the side, off the side of the Raptor liner. And the rear bumper had exactly the same Raptor coating on it as well. We'll get back, we'll see how it looks, but I'm pretty sure that it's protected all of the paintwork at the bottom. This rear bumper looked really bad purely when parked in the road. You end up with people nudge the car and take chunks out of it. So I had to do quite a bit of body work on it to make sure you couldn't really see them. There are a few little nicks in there, no one's going to see them. I know they're there. But it's like a lot of things with our vehicles. We can hide a lot of things. People don't notice. Now these have caused quite a bit of consternation from some people. Now this is obviously a 2010. The grille's got more complicated as the models advanced in facelift versions. So this is originally off the first one. So people think these are cosmetic. They're not. These actually do act as a vent for the air intake. So if you don't know, on the L322s, there's a hole behind the back of here where the airbox is. Now I've got 2 airboxes on this one, so there's one on the other side. But there's basically a hole in here, and there is a channel where the air flows in through the vents. And so the air will flow in, get sucked in, and go through across this line into where the input is for the airbox. I was on Pinterest, and I happened to see these vents painted red. And I was like, they look like L322 vents that have been painted, and sure enough, they were. So I went and bought a set of the earlier ones. This is off the 2004, I think it was, I got. 25 quid for the pair, rubbed them down, taped them up, painted them, and put them on. I thought, okay, let's see what they're like. To me, the later ones got more and more complicated. And to keep with the lines of the vehicle, the 2 to me look the best. So I'm not taking credit for these. Somebody else had the idea before me. I just took them and put them on. They've been on about a couple of years now. And I get lots of comments about them. It's like, where do you buy them from? It took a while to tape them up, trust me, and they're not 100% perfect. There are a couple of places where the tape's gone over it, but no one really notices. But when it's clean, which is not very often, the red really stands out. And that's more to my preference, is the red accents breaking up all of the drug dealer black. But anyway, that's why they are there. It's one of the most talked about things on this vehicle. You might be able to see these. These again, one of the very first things I did. There was a place down in Farnborough who had done some graphics work for me for the Defender. I saw these on a vehicle out of St. Louis in the States that had a US and a UK, and I thought that looks pretty cool. So that went on about 3 years ago. It cost me £100. They're beginning to crack now. The other side's worse. On this side, they've completely gone. And I think what's happened is trees have gone down here and pulled it off. So I'm probably going to have to get new ones, or I might just take them all off because a lot of people have got them now. These I like. And the reason why I like them is because they really do work. They do deflect a lot of air out. You can have your windows down when it's raining. I'm not a big fan of air conditioning, never have been, don't really like it. But I like these because instead of having two, where it would stop here, these ones actually have it to the back. So it actually finishes it off a little bit better. Doesn't really do anything, it just covers it up. Somebody had these on before and taken them off and then put them back on. And when I originally got the vehicle, I had a set of these on and I was like, I don't like them, took them off. And behind the back here on the trim on the door, somebody had gone through it with one of those toffee wheels to get the goop off of it. And it looks terrible under here. So I had to go back and buy another set and put them on. But like I said, it's a Marmite thing. I like them. Also for me, when I'm parked up and I want to run my Starlink, I drop the window down and run the Starlink cable through here because my modem's at the back. And it keeps the water out as well. So again, back to some of the first mods that I did. The rear box came out with silencers and two separate exhaust pipes. It's quite low down. It does help with improvement on departure angle. Not much, but it does. You can get versions of these without the silencers, but to me, I think they're going to be too loud. The weight saving was quite significant. Those rear boxes are not light. They're quite heavy. There's a huge amount of packing inside them as well. It sort of deadened down the noise into the vehicle. That's why they're that big. What else has been done back here? So back here I've got the tow hitch was already on when I got it. I basically just run it with this loop on the back. It's got the caravan plug on it as well, never been used. And this is my output for my compressor, which is buried inside of the vehicle behind the back of my kitchen. But this allows me to plug in and out and then use my compressor to pump my tyres back up. So like the Winch, one of the last modifications I did was to put the dash panel on. So this is another Lee Houghton one. There's links in the description of everything on this vehicle if you go to my website. But this front bash panel fits pretty much all models. But that is the full subframe engine bash plate. That went on in January this year. Again, if you want one, go talk to Lee, he'll custom make them for you. So the front panel stops at the end of the subframe from the engine, and then I have a gearbox panel that is from Heavy Cruiser. The two bolts mount the transfer cover. So the transfer cover itself will mount to the factory holes, but we had to get creative with the gearbox plate. So that is actually custom welded to a bracket on the exhaust hangers. You might just be able to see that. And the other thing I had to do was I had to cut a small chunk here to be able to get the pipe, the reverse pipe that comes from the other side of the engine through there. That was solid. And so that had to get cut to be able to allow that pipe to come through. But that is full underbody protection. There is nothing back here else that's really exposed. The fuel tank is covered. The exhaust pipe, I think it's fine. So you can see all the way there front, right the way to the back of where the transfer box is now is fully protected. That is 4mm steel right the way through, front to back. So the other thing I've got is I've got a solar panel on the front. This is really meant to charge my start battery and trickle charge it. This isn't a daily driver. And those of you that know about these vehicles, they do not like having low power on your battery. So as soon as they start dropping, you start getting weird, strange faults. So if I never drove this thing for a couple of weeks, it would be a dog to start it, because I'd have to get my jump pack on it, purely because the battery is charging up all the ECUs, and who the heck knows what goes on inside these things when they're dormant. So this is a Lensun new Defender 100 watt panel. You can get L322 panels, but the problem there is they come down too far, in my opinion. They come all the way down here. And the way that the panels themselves, if you look at them, they're sort of like, they come through here, and it just doesn't look good, in my opinion. So how I knew this would fit from the Defender one was I found a Defender decal that you can buy off eBay, got the measurements of it, came out, measured mine, and it fits. And then the cable disappears to the MPPT controller through the grille. Now, a lot of things on this vehicle have changed over a period of time. So if you look at the original ones, they've got like grey trim work, gunmetal grey accents on the plastic here. They've also got it here on the air invent where your windscreen washers are. I've taken all that off and I've just painted it body colour black. Down here it's obviously Raptored. I've not gone down the route of changing over the Range Rover to black. It looks sinister enough, all black anyway. I actually like the breakup of the silver on it. It harks back to the classic days. And if you look on the back here, you can see again, I went with black and took away any of the gunmetal grey. On the rear I have some Heritage Studios lights. These amber ones, they are floods. These are hooked into my Red Vision system. These are really chase lights. I had a whole chase bar on at one point in time that a company sent me. Never used it. It came off. The two white ones are hooked into my reversing system. So the way that they work is I can run these independent as just white lights. If my lights are on and I hit reverse, these will come on automatically. They will not come on during daylight hours. So my lights have to physically be on, the factory lights, and then hit reverse at night time, and then these will light up. The chase lights are great, especially when you're in front of somebody in dusty conditions. These are just a flood, they're not a spot. And that's more to do with the fact that I've had these for a period of time, sitting there in different boxes, and I just needed to reuse them. I originally had these on the side of the vehicle, and then I had one. So what I had was one amber and two white. Never used them. So I basically got rid of some, kept the ambers, and then just ran two of the whites. So one thing that I've done quite recently was these vehicles tend to date themselves with the amount of chrome on them. Chrome is not really sort of a new fad at this point in time in car design, but there is a lot of chrome into the lights here at the back. So I got these are a medium tint. I had these put in, these were 50 quid both sides. And what it does, it just dulls some of the chrome work and the bright work behind the back here of these lenses. I don't think it's possible to do the fronts, and I'm perfectly fine with it. But what it does, you can still see it, but it doesn't shine as much and you don't get any blingy on it. And part of this was just de-blinging it. So whilst these are filthy, again, this is a medium tint, it just dulls it. The grille has changed. So the original Autobiography Black had chrome on it. That came off. Part of my whole branding, color coding was to put red accents, which is why you see things like the red PDCs, things like that. You can buy these off of Powerful UK. I'm now on my second grille. Actually, I think I might be on my third. The reason why I had to go get another one was when these went on, to get them to fit on the factory brackets, because these are all raked out further than the originals where the factory spot brackets were, they cut huge amounts of chunks of plastic out of the grille. So when I knew that the bumper was coming off and I knew the winch was going on, I had to find another way of being able to fit these. So I went out and bought another grille, and I've not had to cut much. You probably can just about see behind the back here to run the power cable for the light. Goes through a really small cutout in here, and that's how I got those fitted. But that's more to do with the look of the vehicle, that I wanted it predominantly black, subtle red accents on it, and I'm really happy how it turned out. So anyway, that's part one of the walk around of the vehicle. Tyres, wheels, winch, lights, underbody protection, all the optional extras that I've put on this thing over the last 3.5 years. So I hope it gives you some inspiration to be able to build yours up. One thing I would say is don't go copying people. It's not something that I've done. I'd highly recommend you sort of find your own way and your own style on how you want to do it. Me with the black and red accents, that's just me. I just like it the way it is. Things like the Raptor, I took inspiration from James when he did his, and I really like the way it's turned out. That may not be for you, so once you do the Raptor, there really is no going back. So all of the things on my vehicle is my personal preference, it's the way I want it, and I now have it the way I want it after 3.5 years. It's been a labour of love, as most of these builds generally are. So in part two, we'll be talking about the rooftop tent and the awning and the roof rack specifically, and all of the weight considerations of having a rooftop tent, having an awning bolted to your roof rack. There are a lot of things that people miss, but I'll walk you through what I've done with mine. There are other videos on the channel that go through what it is. Just so you know, it's an Alucab LT50, but we'll go into more detail that in part two. Also, go over to Overlanding forward 4wd.co.uk. In there is the vehicle build. There's a whole page with links to absolutely everything that's gone on this vehicle over the 3.5 years that I've had it. So as much as I can, I have put hyperlinks in there to everything that has gone on here with descriptions on it in all the different sections. While you're there, go look at the free resources I've built for you. There is a checklist on pre-planning, vehicle checklists, gear checklists. I've done a quiz, Are You Overland Ready?, which scores all of the attributes to make sure that you're ready to go do this. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. And I've also built a comparison between rooftop tents, ground tents, tarps and cots. Shows you all of the breakdown, all of the considerations, and also the costs as well. That's all up there under free resources. All of this is trying to lay the foundation for when the book comes out on June 30th. I really hope you would buy it. A lot of time, effort, labor, love, money, God knows what else has gone into putting it in place for you. I'm really excited about it. It's something I never thought I would do, but I've done it. Once the final edits are finished and the pictures have been selected, then it will go up on Amazon, and I will let everybody know that you can go and get an advanced copy, or at least pay for it when it's ready for launch. I will be selling them through my website as well. I've got to figure out how I do that, but most of the time you'll be able to go just buy it on Amazon. It'll be about $14.99 for the paperback, and it'll be $6.99 for the digital download. Clearly, digital download, you can go to all the links, but if you want the paperback, all of the supporting checklists will be on the website free if you want to go get them, which is why I'm building these out in lieu of that. So you won't miss out the fact that you have a paperback book and you can't click the link on the book. Everything will be linked back to the website, so you won't miss out. In fact, you'll probably end up with a couple of freebies in it, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. So go and have a look at the free resources on the website. They will begin to build out over a period of time. There's 4 there now. I hope to have about 10 by the time the book launches on June 30th. That's it. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next one.